what's going on, guys? Like I mentioned to you in the previous video of my bow upgrades, that I was going to be doing a series specifically surrounding kind of getting ready for the archery season that's coming up. As many of you know, I live in Arizona, so for us, the over-the-counter season for deer starts August 23rd, and then a few weeks after that is when it rolls into the archery seasons for elk and other species in the state. So with a few weeks left, I'm going to try and go through just a couple of things of how to get ready for the season. So on this episode, I'm going to go through specifically on how to sight in your 5-pin sight. I'm not going to do a 1-pin slider sight because I don't have one, so I'm just going to stick to this one. And then for the next episode, I'll roll into another aspect of how to get ready for the season. So stay tuned. I'm going to go ahead and get set up outside, and the next time you see me, I'll be getting ready to send some arrows down range for you guys. All right. So as you guys can see here, this is how I have the target set up, and I'll explain this here in a sec, but I'm going to go ahead and put the target down range, and then I'm going to start getting some stuff prepped, and then when you see me again, I'll be putting some arrows down range while I explain the process of sighting. Hey guys, so I got everything set up. I got the target down range, I got my bow out here. I only have 3 arrows with me, so it's going to be a quick short burst of shots. It's not going to be anything too lengthy. But basically what I've done is I set up my target at 20 yards. I have a 20-yard area marked off. What I recommend for anyone sighting in their pins first time around is to start at 5 or 10 yards. That way you're guaranteed that your sight is aligned at least enough to impact the target, so you're not losing arrows that way. But what you guys saw on the previous little section of video of how I had set up the the vertical and the horizontal line on the target, that is intended to, when you're going to start off, you want to get your elevation up and down aligned first. So that's going to be the purpose of the horizontal line, that you could see where your arrows are impacting, and from there you can adjust your actual sight housing. And then from there, the vertical line is going to be for your windage left and right, and that's going to come in handy a little bit later. Let's go ahead and start with sighting in the 20-yard pin for elevation. So we'll get that going first. I'm going to take the camera and I'm going to set it up right in front of the target, and then I'll do some audio over it, and then I'll explain what's going on. So here we go. Also, while I'm doing this, I hope I don't get rained out, because we're already in monsoon season and we've been getting a lot of rain. So now that your target is set up, before you take your first shot, go ahead and loosen up that 20-yard pin, slide it to the top of the housing, tighten it back down, and go ahead and shift your housing to the middle of the elevation bar, and then go ahead and proceed to take your first shot. As you can see here in this first shot, it hit a little bit high, so that means once we're done with this set of arrows, we're going to have to adjust that housing up, because you want to follow the impact of your arrow. So now that you guys have seen the first 3 arrows that I sent down range, you can see that they all hit above. I already covered on, while I was shooting the arrows, how to get your 20-yard pin set up, or whatever distance you want to set up, how to adjust it. Now that you saw that all the arrows hit above the horizontal line, to align your sight, you want to follow the impact of the arrows. So that means since I hit above the horizontal line, I'm going to move the entire housing up. So when I move it up, that means I'm going to aim slightly lower to get onto that horizontal line, and that means that that'll be impacting on that line now, because I raise the sight, which means to aim at that 20, I have to bring the entire thing down, which means I should be hitting on the line now. So let's go ahead and do another 3 and see if we can get it lined up right on that line. The adjustment to the housing has been made, and it's been brought up. As you can see, now the arrows are impacting just slightly above the tape, which means that we made a pretty good adjustment. Since they are hitting slightly above the tape, we're going to end up having to bring the housing just a little bit up, and that should put us right on the tape. So remember, while you're taking these shots, it doesn't matter where you impact on that horizontal tape. That tape is there just to simply see how off your elevation is. So now that you guys got to see the second set of 3 arrows going down range, and you saw how they were all much closer to the tape. So from here, I would probably only have to do just a minor adjustment up to bring it right to the center of that tape. I'm not going to shoot another 3 arrows. It's just kind of giving you guys a run through of how to do it, or what to expect. If you're too far off the tape, you need to make adjustments, but this one was pretty close to the tape. In all actuality, my sight is already sighted in for these arrows, so I'm kind of intentionally shooting above the tape and then shooting accurately more towards the tape, so you guys can see what adjustments would look like. But now that you got your 20-yard pin set, what you want to do is adjust your windage left and right. So now we're going to get the next 3 arrows and we're going to send them down range, but we're going to send them on that vertical line of tape that's on there, so you can see what to make your adjustments, or what adjustments need to be made, whether it's going to be left or to the right. And again, for aligning your sight, it's always going to be following the impact of the arrow. So the next 3 arrows that you see are going to be going up and down along that vertical line. All right. Your goal here is to keep your pin aligned with that vertical piece of tape. You can aim anywhere on the tape from the top to the bottom of the target, but just remember, if your elevation is off slightly, you want to try and keep it closer to the center of the target. As we see, this first impact is slightly left of the tape, so that means we're going to have to end up shifting that housing just a little bit to the left. As you see this second impact here, same thing, it's hitting just left. That means it's going to be a minor adjustment of the entire housing to the left to get our elevation, our windage aligned perfectly. So as you saw on these arrows, for the windage, I'm hitting slightly left. So again, aligning your sight, you want to go to the impact of the arrow. So that means I would move the entire housing, and this is only for the 20-yard line, not for anything further. You're going to move the entire housing over and just kind of get it aligned to the best of your abilities, and then shoot another 3 arrows for confirmation and make sure they're actually hitting on the tape. So the one thing I do want to address with you guys though, however, is you get your 20-yard pin, you get your elevation and your windage right, and then you get out to a range and you want to do your 20 through or 30 through 60. Like for mine, I have a 5 pin, so it'd be 20, 30, 40, 50, and 60. So you got your 20 down, you got your windage and elevation taken care of. But when you go further in distance, your windage might start being a little bit off. So think about it, at 20 yards, you might only be 1/4 of an inch off center line. But when you double that distance to 40 yards, you might end up being an entire inch up to 2 inches off, just depending on how bad your windage adjustments are. So when you do go back to further distances, take another chance to adjust your entire housing for left and right windage, not for elevation. Don't move the housing because that'll throw off all your numbers, but just move it left to right depending on where you're impacting, say at 30, at 40, at 50 yards. For me, primarily, when I have to make an adjustment on my windage left or right, I usually do it at 40 yards. So I've been able to get pretty much about a 1 to 1.5 inch diameter group at 40 yards out of 3 arrows. So the only way I can do that though is to make sure that my windage is actually hitting at the bullseye of the target. So this is just to get you started on sighting in your 20-yard pin. If you have the space in your backyard, here in Arizona we have water retention areas in the communities. That's where I spent my first time sighting in my bow for 20, 30, and 40. After that, I found out that there was an archery range about 10-15 minutes away from here, and they charge you, I think it was like $7 to get in, and you can be there all day if you wanted to. So I took my bow there and I got it set up from 20 all the way to 60, or actually I did my 20 here and then I did 30 all the way to 60. So I'll just throw in some footage in between of me taking a few shots leading up to what arrows went down range. And that way you guys can kind of get a feel for it. Once you've got your bow sighted in and you want to just keep practicing that 20-yard repetition, I strongly encourage, instead of putting 2 lines horizontal and vertical on the target, one thing that I always learned when it came to improving your accuracy is if you aim small, you miss small. So I usually get about a 1 inch by 1 inch square of tape, put it on the center of the target or put it somewhere on the target and aim for that, and that is my sole aiming point. And that helps me dramatically with my accuracy to make sure I'm hitting where I want to hit on that target. And that way I know if I'm aiming at a 1 inch by 1 inch square and that's aligned in my sight, my pin covers it and I hit right where I want to. That means that when I'm at a further distance, 40, 50, or 60 yards, that I have less room for error because I've gotten my accuracy down that much. So again, remember, aim small, miss small. Use a smaller target once you've gotten sighted in. But that's all I got for this video, guys. I just wanted to go over the basics of getting a multiple pin sight aligned and accurate for 20 yards, and then from there you guys can develop it into more. So if you have any questions, go ahead and drop it in the comments below. And if you're hunting any of the western states this year, let me know what state you're hunting, what species you're going for. And I always like hearing from you guys to see what you guys are up to as far as the hunting side of things go. So take it easy, guys. That's all I got.